There is now a resurgence of the communist menace in our land, including from newcomers to our country who embrace ideas totally opposed to our way of life and our great success. These are not mere political disagreements like differences over taxes or regulations. Communism is a mortal threat to American liberty.
I'm worried about what Zoran Mamdani means for America.
I'll freeze the rent for millions of tenants, make buses fast and free, and deliver universal childcare. And before you ask, I'll pay for it by taxing the rich.
In some ways, Mamdani, who's a self-proclaimed socialist, doesn't sound that different from other progressive Democrats.
We will take on corporate landlords and cap unfair rent increases.
It's time to stop protecting billionaires.
Every single thing he says, even right down to, that there shouldn't be any billionaires, is merely an extension of what Elizabeth Warren has said.
We need universal child care in this country.
What Bernie Sanders has said.
It's insane and absurd. You got people with hundreds of billions of dollars, tens of billions of dollars. The system cannot afford them.
He is radical for the Democratic Party, but he's also just being more honest about the policies that a particular wing of the Democratic Party have pushed for a long time.
Why do you think this particular race has become a countrywide story?
Because it's a referendum on where our party goes.
Mamdani isn't the type of socialist who thinks the U.S. should just be a little more like Denmark. He's a seize the means of production kind of guy.
It is critical for us to both meet people where they're at and to also organize for what is correct and for what is right. If we're talking about the cancellation of student debt, if we're talking about Medicare for all, these are issues which have the groundswell of popular support across this country. But then there are also other issues that we firmly believe in, whether it's BDS, right? Or whether it's the end goal of seizing the means of production, where we do not have the same level of support at this very moment. And what I want to say is that it is critical that we do not leave any one issue for the other, that we do not meet a moment and only look at what people are ready for, but that we are doing both of these things in tandem. We have to continue to elect more socialists, and we have to ensure that we are unapologetic about our socialism.
Mamdani's ambition is nothing less than leading the vanguard of the new American socialist movement.
There is now a resurgence of the communist menace in our land, including from newcomers to our country who embrace ideas totally opposed to our way of life and our great success. These are not mere political disagreements like differences over taxes or regulations. Communism is a mortal threat to American liberty.
One of the clearest messages emerging from President Donald Trump's recent remarks is that he no longer views communism as a relic of the Cold War or a failed ideology confined to history. Instead, he portrays it as an immediate and growing threat from within the United States itself. That shift in perspective has become a defining feature of his latest political message. Speaking during America's 250th anniversary celebration in Washington, D.C., President Trump delivered one of his strongest condemnations of communism to date. He declared that the United States would never become a communist nation, arguing that communism stands in direct opposition to the principles upon which America was founded. Shortly after the speech, Trump reposted an article on Truth Social describing his remarks as a holy war against communism. While those words originated from the article rather than from Trump himself, his decision to amplify the piece strongly suggests that he embraces its central message. This reflects a significant evolution in Trump's political strategy. For years, Republican leaders have criticized progressive policies by labeling them as far left or socialist. Trump, however, has deliberately gone much further. Rather than calling his ideological opponents socialists, he increasingly identifies them as communists. This is more than a rhetorical choice. It is an effort to redefine America's political debate as an ideological struggle over the nation's future. From Trump's perspective, communism is not merely an unsuccessful economic model. He views it as an ideology fundamentally incompatible with the core values that define the American Republic. Those values include individual liberty, private property, religious freedom, limited government, and the belief that all people are endowed by their Creator with unalienable rights. That explains why one of the most striking moments in his speech centered on faith. Trump reminded the audience that America's Declaration of Independence affirms that all people are created by Almighty God, before adding that, "A communist will never say that." The statement was far from incidental. It underscored Trump's broader argument that communism rejects the spiritual and moral foundations upon which America was built. In Trump's view, systems that concentrate absolute power in the hands of the state inevitably regard faith, religion, and individual conscience as obstacles to political control. Consequently, he frames the conflict between America and communism not simply as a contest between competing political systems, but as a clash between two fundamentally incompatible civilizations and value systems. Trump also invoked history to reinforce his argument. After defeating fascism during World War II, the United States spent decades confronting Soviet communism throughout the Cold War. According to Trump, millions of Americans sacrificed to contain the spread of communist ideology abroad. It would therefore be a historic contradiction, he argues, if that same ideology were allowed to flourish inside the United States. That conviction explains why Trump compared communism to cancer. "A cancer has to be cut out, and it has to be cut out quickly," he declared. The metaphor is revealing. Trump does not portray communism as just another political philosophy deserving equal debate. Instead, he characterizes it as a destructive force that spreads unless confronted decisively. From his standpoint, delaying action only increases the danger. Perhaps the most memorable expression of Trump's position came in another recent statement that has quickly gained widespread attention. "You can be loyal to Karl Marx, or you can be loyal to America. You can be a communist, or you can be a patriot. You cannot be both." This statement encapsulates Trump's ideological worldview. He presents patriotism and communism as mutually exclusive identities. In his assessment, Marxist ideology elevates class struggle and centralized state authority above individual liberty, whereas the American constitutional system is founded upon freedom, limited government, and free market principles. Because these two systems rest upon fundamentally different assumptions about society and human rights, Trump argues they cannot peacefully coexist. Trump has also connected this broader ideological debate to conditions in several major American cities. He points to rising crime, homelessness, drug abuse, and declining public order in a number of Democrat-led urban centers as evidence that increasingly left-wing policies have produced serious consequences. Whether one agrees with that assessment or not, Trump consistently uses these examples to argue that continued movement toward the political left threatens America's long-term stability. Taken together, these statements reveal that Trump is attempting to redefine the nation's political conversation. Rather than presenting elections as a conventional contest between Republicans and Democrats, he frames them as a historic struggle between two competing visions of America, one rooted in constitutional liberty, religious faith, and individual freedom. The other, in his view, leading toward collectivism, centralized government, and ultimately, communism. Regardless of whether one agrees with Trump's characterization, his message is unmistakably consistent. He intends to make opposition to communism a central pillar of his political agenda and argues that America's greatest challenge in the years ahead is not only competing with foreign adversaries, but also defending the country's founding principles against ideological movements that he believes threaten the future of the American Republic itself.